The US and China bringing their trade war to the high seas, imposing additional port fees on ocean shipping firms. Beijing says new levies will protect its shipping industry from what it calls discriminatory measures. China's fees apply to American-owned, operated, built or flagged vessels, but will exclude Chinese-built ships. And they were launched in direct response to U.S. charges on Chinese vessels, which Washington claims are intended to support American shipping companies. Beijing disagreeing, saying they violate agreements on maritime transport. The hike in fees coinciding with a new round of U.S. tariffs also taking effect today and targeting imported timber, kitchen cabinets and upholstered furniture. Most of that coming from China. Latest round of measures and countermeasures triggered by Beijing announcing last week an expansion of export controls on rare earths. Now, that's a sector that China dominates both in what it supplies and in processing. The US president responding with a threat to raise tariffs on Chinese goods to the triple digits. But dispute over trade not at this point apparently enough to disrupt a planned face-to-face between U.S. and Chinese leaders. Well, that's at least according to the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, maintaining that Donald Trump will still meet China's Xi Jinping in South Korea later this month. Both sides pointing to progress during weekend talks between their negotiating teams. And Nick Harper is covering this story for CNA from Washington, D.C. Nick, these extra added port fees from China on U.S. shipping companies, that will have immediate effects as well as knock-on secondary effects. But if you could very quickly look ahead and sum this up, how will these fees affect the U.S. economy?
Well, the expectation is not well, Wei Su. I mean, really, this opens up a new front in the trade war between the US and China. Anything that is moved by sea will now be hit with these additional charges. And in many ways, this is just another thing, as you just outlined. China increased export controls on rare earth minerals last week. Donald Trump, in retaliation, threatened that 100% tariff from November the 1st. But then on Sunday, a bit of a reprieve US time, Monday morning China time, reassurance then from President Trump that things perhaps could be worked out. Now, though, these port fees are in effect, and the hardest hit will, of course, be oil tankers and shipping container ships that are moving goods right around the world. At the moment, shipping companies, by and large, are saying that they won't raise customers' rates. But the fees are expected to hurt supply chains, hitting here in the US, and also increasing the cost of imported goods for US companies and US consumers, goods that are already facing multiple tariffs. So perhaps we could even see companies send less goods to the United States to try and avoid those fees. And of course, that would have a knock-on effect for US consumers. Remember, of course, the goal here is to try and boost US shipbuilding, but it's not entirely clear if this will give much of a boost to the shipbuilding industry. There may not be a rush of orders to make more ships here in the United States, even though these fees are trying to do exactly that.
Oh, Nick, despite these disputes, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent adamant that Mr. Trump will still meet President Xi Jinping in South Korea later this month, which suggests, whatever their differences, the U.S. is not, in fact, touching Beijing's red lines right now.
Well, no, not right now. And in many ways, the US seems to be hedging its bets because we have this element of reassurance, this suggestion that there is progress in negotiations, perhaps even that there are warming relations. But then at the same time, we have these new fees, these new tariffs, and many confusing mixed messages, many of them coming from Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. He told Fox News during an interview that the 100% tariff that Donald Trump has threatened probably will not happen. He said that the relationship between the US and China is good. He said lines of communication have reopened. And he also said we have substantially de-escalated. But then he gave another interview, this time to the Financial Times, and in that interview he accused China of trying to hurt the global economy. He criticised those export controls, and he said it was a sign of how weak the Chinese economy is, also saying that it would backfire, saying if they want to slow down the global economy, they will be hurt the most. So mixed messages so far, perhaps some suggestion that the US is trying to do what it can to get around those red lines, but not really sure exactly which direction it's heading in to achieve that.
Thanks. Nick Harper in Washington, D.C., helping us to decipher those very mixed messages.